Pixar's Cars was a smash hit when it came out, and was a merchandise juggernaut. Disney saw this infinite money glitch and wanted to make a spin-off. Their idea was planes, I guess, but for some reason, Pixar didn't want to make it. Maybe it was due to schedule conflicts with the movies they were already making at the time, but Disney made it by themselves. This probably wasn't the best move, as I had forgotten about these movies. Most likely because they just aren't that great. I thought that since this movie went under the radar in my childhood, it would be bad. But it was just kind of plain. Nice! Planes follows a crop duster named Dusty. That would be like if Lightning McQueen was called Racy. Dusty is sick of dusting the fields and wants to do more with his life, so enters into this worldwide race. Yes, this Cars spin-off is another racing movie, which was definitely the right choice. I'm watching all the Pixar movies for my next video. And why I think Cars 2 didn't work was because they moved away from racing. And what's funny is that the plot of this movie should have been the plot for Cars 2. Lightning McQueen raced around the world while interacting and befriending the other competitors. But instead we have it in this movie. I do think the story is actually alright. It's kind of hard to do a bad underdog story, but I think it could have been so easily done better. Since Dusty is going up against racing planes, he is very outmatched, but it really doesn't feel like that. Sure, he does kind of struggle at the start, but at one point, he stays in first for a while, which doesn't feel right. I'm not saying I want him to struggle the whole time, because then it would seem out of nowhere when he wins. I just wanted a neat middle ground. What if Dusty was pretty slow compared to the others, so he has to figure out ways to get ahead? There was a moment like this when he flew through a tunnel and made it into first, but he was kind of forced into the scenario. A quirky and totally fleshed out trait that Dusty has is that he's scared of heights. Oh, the irony. While this is a kind of lazy idea for a character, it was implemented for stakes. He spends the whole race flying close to the ground, which makes things needlessly complicated for him. Like when he's flying over rough seas, and he gets demolished by a wave. You're telling me he was too scared to go a little bit higher? He was flying higher at the start of the race. This was a moment created to get Dusty at his lowest. And I get it makes for better storytelling, but it feels too forced. Dusty eventually finds himself about to lose the race, so overcomes his fear and flies super high and takes the W. This works, I guess. It does the job, but there's something that makes it feel like a hollow victory. Bit of a topic change, but it's to make a point later on, so bear with me. Dusty was trained to fly by this character Skipper. Skipper doesn't fly, for unknown reasons, until they become known. Okay, he pretty much led a platoon of these other planes to their deaths, which is kind of out of nowhere, but a very good backstory. He does get back into the sky to help Dusty fend off Ripslinger in the final act. And it's here where I think Dusty should have had his moment. What if Ripslinger and Dusty were super high up, having some sort of dogfight, when Skipper starts to get damaged a lot? Dusty would have to get up there to help, and would be kind of rewarding, since him and Skipper fought beforehand. It's not a mind-boggling climax, but better than what we got. So Dusty wins, and it's a cool moment, but again, something felt missing. He kind of won by outplaning another plane, which feels very undeserved because it doesn't really make much sense. He beats Ripslinger, who has already won this race 3 times before. And yeah, he was showboating, but whatever. What I thought was going to happen was Dusty would win somehow by being a crop duster, which I think would have been awesome concept-wise. The whole movie, Dusty represents the cars and planes in this world, believing that they can do something more than what they were made for. And all the other competitors at the start would keep reminding Dusty that he was only a crop duster. So why not let him win that way, to really stick it to them? The start of the race, Dusty still had his crop duster undercarriage gooch thing. And everyone was telling him to take it off, but he refused. To me, I was thinking, oh, maybe he can rig it and it'll give him some kind of boost or something like that. And if you're a nitpicker that said this would go against the race's rules, the commentators could have just said, is this in the rules? And then another character would say, there isn't a rule about crop dusters entering the race. And this was even foreshadowed in the opening dream Dusty has. Why wouldn't they do this? Pixar would have done it. There was so much potential with the story, but it's safe and generic. To be fair, it was unpredictable because I was giving it too much credit. I think this movie lacks the sauce of its Pixar cousin. I find it hard not to compare the film with Cars because, come on. Every aspect of this movie doesn't have any lasting impact on you. The music is so So unremarkable. And at points doesn't match what's happening on screen. The climax doesn't feel epic at all, because the music just isn't playing its part in it. The script has points where it feels like I'm a baby being talked down to.
Dusty, you're not built to race. You're built to dust crops. Do you know what will happen if you push it too far?
And the line deliveries aren't helping that case. The visuals are so boring and look so cheap. This was made by a billion-dollar company, and you're telling me that they couldn't fork out a few extra million? I'm aware that this was made by the studio's B team, but I don't think that's really an excuse for a lot of these points. Think of Pixar's first movie songs. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about? It was Toy Story. In my Pixar video, as you'll see soon, I'm very critical on the side characters in some movies, but here they're just whatever. Not good, mind you, but there's at least some here that have something going on. Like El Chupacabra harassing the Australian plane. This was getting a little weird. But I do like how they turn it around with her being a bit of a freak. The side characters that aren't planes, however, are boring and one note. All this stuff I wasn't a fan of, but a big disappointment in my mind was how small the world felt. For a movie about its characters traveling the world, how come the world feels so small? This is another thing Pixar does great. Create worlds that feel so lived in and alive. This spin-off though, we spend like 1 minute in each place, and all we see is the airport they land at. At least Cars 2 got this right, and it doesn't do that often. This aspect sucks, and was the most important part of this movie, because that's what the race was based around. Planes is a movie alright. You can tell they were just trying to capitalize on the popularity of cars and sell more toys, which they probably did. The soulless nature of this film upsets me, because I know it could have been better. Dare I say, great. Dusty is such a bare bones character, with hints of depth to him, and that side just never comes out. And overcoming his fear of heights barely counts as a character arc. One of the writers for this movie was John Lasseter, who has been writing and directing Pixar movies for years at this point, and has made some classic films, but he really misses the mark with this one. None of the charm from the Pixar films is present here. Also, the Disney Plus version that I watched showed this black frame every time the camera cut, but I don't know if that was just a me issue. There was a sequel made because this movie did way too well, and for once, I've actually heard it's better than the original. So let's dive in. Planes, Fire and Rescue, in my opinion, is better than the first movie. Who would have thought? This movie follows Dusty as he takes up firefighting so his small town can have a corn festival or something like that, while also grappling with the possibility of never racing again. Dusty's gearbox decided to give out on him one day, and he needs to replace it, but uh-oh, they don't make his gearbox anymore, so womp womp. He can't push his engine to the limit anymore. And that's about it for this subplot. This element does come into play when he's fighting fires, but you kind of forget about it. There was something nice about seeing Dusty still racing, but that takes up like 2 minutes of the movie's time. This movie could have ended up being like Cars 2, with it moving away from the racing aspect that made the first one unique. But they don't force a side character to be a main character. Seriously, if this gas truck was the main character, I just wouldn't watch this. Plus, the new characters are actually solid, and I find myself liking most of them. But Blaze is the standout. He's Dusty's mentor this time around, and has a past as a TV show star. That's so random, but I love it. But the best character in the whole movie is Joe Swanson Carr. There's this rich car character, who I forgot the name of, but I do remember just how cartoonishly evil he is.
Hey, we're not getting enough water on the lodge. Reroute the main water line to the roof sprinklers.
Oh, no. The firefighters need that water to make retardant.
How do you know that?
I'm the concierge. It's my job to know everything.
I don't care.
I think the action scenes of the characters doing their jobs are very entertaining to watch, even with most of the characters just flying around. These scenes make the fires feel like a dangerous threat, and kinda like the main villain of the movie. Like, look at this! You can't tell me this doesn't feel like Spite. And this is complemented by the visuals, which improve. I love when sequels actively try to improve everything over the original, and this one is no different. I'm also really glad they didn't bring back any of the other races, because I did not want to see more of El Chupacabra. Anyway, the movie wraps up with Dusty crashing, thanks to his gearbox, but gets a new one that works properly from Moore, whose motto is literally making things better than new. This concluded the injured arc nicely, and for some reason I didn't think Moore would just make him a new one, even though for the whole movie he's been saying it. And because this movie is superior to the first, I don't really have much else to say. Remember, this isn't a masterpiece of a movie, but it's still alright, and you'll enjoy yourself while watching. I've gained some appreciation for the Planes franchise, but that's about it. I can tell that I'll probably forget about these in a week, but that's why I make these videos, I guess. Alright, back to watching the good movies.